So we'd like to do a moment of silence for him. We've put our flag at half-mast today in his honor, and if any councillors have any words to say tonight, they can feel free to do so at this time, and at another future council meeting we'll do a proper accolade for Councillor Kinney. But if councillors have anything they would like to say about Councillor Kinney tonight, they can do so now. Councillor Niche.
Just going to say, miss you, Nelson, and I'll miss you handing me those candies around the side of the table there.
I've known Nelson probably longer than anyone on council, at almost 40 years. First time I met him, I was a bartender and he was a waiter. A lot of people probably don't even remember the place called the Windjammer in the mall there. And he's been a friend, a mentor. Over the years, he's been a strong advocate for a lot of people in this community. Even as an older person, he always thought of the youth and everything else. And I'm really going to miss him.
Yeah, I'm very thankful. I had an opportunity to work with him last 3.5 years. Lot of learned from him, and he was a true booster of our community. He will be missed, and but not forgotten.
I couldn't have said it any better. He's exactly the model of what every Rupert booster could be. Nelson and I had a unique relationship. Obviously, he was the elder statesman of council, and I was kind of the, I hate to admit it, but the baby that everyone likes to joke around. And even with 50 years difference, he always treated me as a true friend. So we'll miss him, but he won't be forgotten.
Okay. Thank you for that. I'd like to call tonight's public hearing to order. Councillor Niche.
I own a property in the area, so I'm going to excuse myself from this conversation.
Thank you. We're here to discuss zoning amendment bylaw number 3420, 2018, to allow a special care residential zone at 333 11th Avenue East. And first up, we'll have a report from our city planner. Welcome back.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Today I don't have any overhead visual aids. This report will be all in words. The proposed bylaw received second reading at the February 26th regular council meeting, and public hearing was scheduled for today. As brief background analysis, the report presented to council on February 26th, which includes the full application as well as staff analysis, remains current and is included in its entirety in attachment 1. The proposed project will provide supportive housing for individuals re-entering day-to-day life following addiction treatment. Staff has developed a zone specifically for supportive housing with the intent of allowing the use within the context of land use regulations specifically. And the applicant agreed to housing agreement, which was signed by both applicant and city officials and adopted by bylaw on February 26th. The housing agreement has been registered and proof of registration is included in attachment 2. Staff has conducted internal referrals and there were no comments that would prevent the proposed amendments. Staff also conducted the mandatory external referral to Ministry of Transportation and Infrastructure, who signed off on the proposed zoning bylaw, and the proof is attached in attachment 3, included in attachment 3. Public notice was mailed out within a radius of 100 meters, 300 feet from the subject property and published in the local newspapers. As of the date of this report, staff received 6 written responses, all of which are included in attachment 4, and we haven't received any additional written responses since then. And that concludes my report, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Okay, so now we're going to move into our public hearing. Thank you. Our public hearing section. And I'm going to read a statement of the chair, some of the rules around public hearings. So a public hearing is organized under Section 890 of the Local Government Act. Tonight's public hearing involves the zoning amendment bylaw number 3420-2018. The intent of this bylaw is to allow a special care residential zone at 333 11th Avenue East. Every person present who believes that their interest is affected by the proposed bylaw shall be given a reasonable opportunity to be heard respecting matters contained in the proposed bylaw. None of you will be discouraged or prevented from making your views known. However, it is important to restrict your remarks to matters contained in the proposed bylaw. A person may make their statement in writing as outlined in the public notice, and if received by the deadline, the presentation will be received by staff at the public hearing. If a person wishes to make a presentation at the public hearing, they are welcome to do so, provided that the following criteria are followed. This is necessary in order to allow for the recording of the public hearing process. The chairperson will recognize only those individuals who present themselves at the table and speak into the microphone. Prior to speaking, please provide your full name and be prepared to spell your surname for the corporate administrator. Please also provide your residential or business address. Should you wish to read from a prepared statement, the city would appreciate receiving a copy for reference purposes by the corporate administrator. Members of council may, if they so wish, ask questions of you following your presentation. Please note that this is not a question period at which a debate takes place. City Council will not provide any comments on issues raised, but will be in attendance to listen to the comments presented. Should no additional speakers present themselves, the chair will call 3 times for anyone else to speak to the matter, and if no one else comes forward, the public hearing will be adjourned. After the public hearing has adjourned, the council may, without further notice, give whatever effect council believes proper to the representations made at this hearing. So that being said, we'll call for speakers, and each speaker can come as you're ready, and they can come forward to the mic and speak to the proposed development, and council is here to listen. So I'll call for the first speaker to come forward, please. Welcome.
Thank you. So my name is Nathan Randall. That's Randall. My address is 2008 Atlin Avenue. So I live on the opposite side of town from this, but yeah, I just want to say I had the pleasure of visiting the Trinity House this afternoon. I met with Willie and Graham, learned about this initiative, and I think it's a fantastic thing for Prince Rupert. I think it's very important, and there is no alternative. So I strongly support this rezoning. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. Next speaker, please. Welcome.
Hi. My name is Graham Edwards. I'm a volunteer support worker at 333. I'm also a recovering addict, alcoholic myself. I reside in this town. My residence is 701 5th West. I live there with my family, my kids and my wife. And I don't know what I would do. I got out of treatment last April, and I don't know what I would do without Trinity. I don't know if I'd be here today. It's a much needed thing in this town for males. And that's what I got to say. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Next speaker, please. Welcome.
How's it going? Justin Ball, 333 11th Ave East. I am one of the inpatients, I guess you call it, who live there. I've been clean and sober now for 4 months and 4 days. I can honestly say I'd be dead if it wasn't for Trinity. So, yeah, to say that this is a good idea, I think falls short of what this town needs. And now, my life is completely different. Yeah, I don't know where I would be. Actually, I do. I'd be dead. So, thank you.
Thank you very much for your comments. Next speaker, please. Welcome.
Okay, my name's Ken Hallett. I currently reside at 213 102nd Street. Where to begin? I was born and raised here. Been gone for about 20 years. I've been back for about a year. My mother is the recently retired Marlene Swift, program coordinator or ex-program coordinator of the police-based victim support services. I currently work at the extreme weather shelter. I strongly support Willie's application for the recovery house. I think this town needs it. I've been gone for a long time, and it's a big change since I've been back. You know, not only does this town need a recovery house, I feel that it needs like a detox center, a treatment center, the whole 9 yards. What Willie's doing is a good thing. You know, there's been some drastic changes over the 20 years that I've been gone to this town. You know, it's somewhat depressing since I've been back, and this is one of the positive things that I see happening. I was introduced to him on the phone when I was living down south through my mother, and it was strongly suggested that when I came back that it was one of the people that I hook in with. I've been through recovery houses down south. Willie has a nice recovery house in comparison to some of the ones that I've been through down south. I myself am currently in recovery. I'm about 2.5 years clean and sober, and I'm a drywaller by trade. You know, and this town needs something, right? And this is a good thing. So I strongly support it, and anything else that promotes recovery, right? The treatment centers, the detoxes, and you know, first stage, second stage housing and stuff like that. I see there's a need for it. As my own personal experience is working at the shelter, you know, I'd say probably 95% of those people have addiction or alcohol issues, right? And you know, it's needed. You know, those types of resources are a valuable asset to this community, and I see no reason why it should be rejected. You know, I'm just was called here on a short notice to support it, and I support it. You know, I've been to the house many times. It's a nice, clean, safe environment. There's good food, you know, and there's good support, right? And you know, it has my approval. So that's all I gotta say.
Thank you very much. And please send my regards to your mom, wonderful woman. Next speaker, please. Okay, I'll call a second time for a speaker. And I'll call a third and final time for a speaker. Okay, hearing none, I'd like to entertain a motion to adjourn the public hearing. Moved by Councillor Renhowa, second by Councillor Moreau. All those in favor? Motion's carried. Welcome back, Councillor Niche. Okay, I'd like to call tonight's regular council meeting to order. Recommendation that the regular meeting be suspended and the committee of the whole meeting be convened. Moved by Councillor Moreau, seconded by Councillor Cunningham. All those in favor? Motion's carried. I'd like to call tonight's committee of the whole meeting to order. Recommendation that the agenda for the committee of the whole meeting of February 26, 2018 be adopted as circulated. Moved by Councillor Cunningham, seconded by Councillor Moreau. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. Okay, so we have two presentations this evening on the Committee of the Whole. First up, we have Joyce Charlton regarding the Youth Mental Health and Substance Use Local Action Team report. Welcome.
Thank you. Just give me a second.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
That looks kind of fun. Absolutely.
Do I do this? Or?
Oh, can we get her
I have
set up
a-
on our presentation?
Yes. Okay, and how do we make it
Full screen.
full screen?
Good question.
I think you could just go to view and then full screen.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Joyce Charlton, and I am the former project lead for the Child and Youth Mental Health Substance Use Local Action Team that was in Prince Rupert. We are no longer an action team because we lost our funding in December, but I'm here to share other information.
I think you could just use the arrows. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So just a quick overview about the local action team. The Child and Youth Mental Health Substance Use Collaborative was funded by the Doctors of BC and the BC government at the time, and they were committed to increasing timely access to support and services for children and families that are challenged with mental health and substance use concerns in Prince Rupert. This initiative was province-wide. During the 4 years that this initiative received funding, it established 64 local action teams in the province of BC and 15 in the north. And we had one in Prince Rupert here for 2 years. And you can see just on the bottom point on the slide where the other local action teams in the north were. So in Prince Rupert, we came together, 40 or so, sometimes less, sometimes more. Community members participated in this project over a 2-year period. We had teachers, RCMP members, people that worked for the ministry, health professionals, counselors, service providers, parents, and community members came together and sat at this table for a 2-year period. And our goal was to look at the services provided in Prince Rupert, to see how best to provide timely access and support and services to children and families and youth that were having to struggle and find support and services when they had mental health concerns and substance use in Prince Rupert. So we did many projects over the 2-year period. Some of the ones that I've listed here just briefly. We hosted a wellness expo in 2016, and we called it May the 4th Be With You. We did it on May 4th. And all the service providers in Rupert came together at the Civic Center and provided a great day where students from the middle school, Annunciation, and the high school came and visited and talked to the different resource people that are available that they typically wouldn't see on a daily basis, where they were able to sit and talk to people and learn about the different programs in Prince Rupert. We had a gentleman who calls himself the White Hatter come up to Prince Rupert over in 2017. He came to Rupert twice, and they did over 10 presentations to students, teachers, and parents in the community about internet safety and awareness. We did a youth fest at the high school in April of 2017. We created a resource poster, which is a blue and black poster that's around town. I noticed that there's one in this building, which is great. We brought in different professionals, and we did a PD workshop for teachers and parents on trauma-informed practices. It's called ACEs. Now I can't remember what it's called, that acronym. If it comes to me, I'll let you know. I worked with the grade 10 students at the high school, and they developed and designed and created their own youth wallet cards that we had 10,000 cards printed that are all over the city and in the high school, in the public schools, in the middle school, at different doctor's offices. And I think there's some here at City Hall as well. I'd like to leave some of these with you today. There were over 30 students that participated in creating the different designs. And it was a great opportunity for youth to learn about mental health resources and things that are available. And of course now it's all about apps, and yes, there's an app for that. And the different resources that we have in Rupert, as well as in the province, that youth can access through the telephone or apps or the internet. The Doctors of BC created a ER protocol that they traveled around the province to train ER doctors and nurses to create a consistent standard approach for care when children and youth have to go to the ER, and that is ongoing. And then the project that I'm here to present some information about this evening is called the Pathway to Wellness Community Poster. We came together and hosted a wellness workshop where we invited the community and different service providers to come together to look at what that pathway to wellness for families and children and youth could look like. It's our vision of what the pathway for families to find resources that are available, and hopefully our vision would be that every door is the right door. So families, when they're looking and they're struggling for their children and youth to find the different resources that they need, that every place that they go, they would receive the same information and the same help to find the resources that they need at that time. So this is a picture of our poster that hopefully people recognized, that is in different places around the city. This is a picture of the poster that we created that shows families struggling and finding their way, and then in the end looking at what that vision of wellness in Prince Rupert looks like, with having a neighborhood house, having a child development center, having resources that children and youth can access mental health care in Prince Rupert, where there are services available that they don't get put on a wait list. and just our vision of what our community coming together would look like, where people helping people and everyone being a hand up instead of not being, going to the different places and being told that, oh, we don't do that here, no, that's not us. Where when families and youth and children are struggling, that they can go to these different services and that they would find the help that they need. So during our day together, we identified needs that are for families struggling with mental health challenges. We identified core elements of care with the goal to achieve a consistent community approach for families. And then we created this visual document for families to find their way through the mental health system in Prince Rupert. So we have printed off the posters. The posters are in different buildings in Prince Rupert, and today I'd like to present a poster to City Council.
Great.
So this is the poster.
Absolutely. Sure.
I mounted it for you, so it's easy.
Awesome.
To
Yeah. Great. We're going to put up in City Hall for you, for sure. Very nice. Any questions from council? You guys want me to pass this around? We'll take a look at it after. Questions? Yeah, go ahead.
Just like to thank for doing great job for our community. Thank you.
Councilor Niche?
Is this something that is going to continue? Do you see more funding coming your way to further this, or is it come to an end permanently?
I'd like to think that we might receive additional funding. I know that we have our NDP leader in town tonight. It would be a great question to ask him. I've not heard of any new funding yet, but it's possible. It's an important issue, and I think that the province recognizes that.
Thank you very much for the presentation, Joyce. There's a Healthy Communities Committee that meets with Northern Health, and they have some funding, and there might be some funding available through that. Next time they have a meeting, I'll try and get a hold of you and get you to come to it, because this is a fantastic presentation, and trust me, this town needs all the help the youth can get. Thank you.
Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Okay, next up we have a report from our Chief Financial Officer, and then our final public engagement for the public budget consultations of 2018.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This community of the whole includes the second public engagement opportunity prior to the final budget recommendation after we receive the final assessment values from BC Assessment. At the first public consultation held on March 12th here in Council Chambers, we presented a snapshot of the February 26th preliminary budget presentation. Staff identified a balanced budget with no changes to services, using the assessed values provided by BC Assessment in January. As the screen identifies, the proposed residential rate is lower than the mill rate in 2017, which is a result of residential assessments increasing over last year. The mill rate is recalculated to ensure the city only brings in the taxation revenues necessary to balance the 2018 budget. Given that many property owners' assessments either increased, decreased, or stayed the same, it is important for owners to calculate the impact to them on an individual basis and compare the result to last year's municipal bill. The presentation outlining how an owner can calculate the impact these rates will have on them can be found on the city's website. Property owners are reminded that the property tax notice they receive includes taxes we collect on other agencies' behalves. These funds are remitted to those agencies and make up approximately 30% of the tax notice received. The municipal mill rates shown on the previous slide are only in respect of the city's budget. Staff would like to remind home and business owners that property taxes can be paid in advance on a monthly basis through a pre-authorized withdrawal program. Paying monthly can smooth out the financial impact of property taxes. Those with mortgages can have their property tax payments combined through their lending institutions. Anyone interested in setting up a pre-authorized withdrawal program are encouraged to contact City Hall. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Bauman. Okay, so if there's any members of the public who would like to speak to the 2018 budget, so far no proposed increase in taxes this year. You can come forward and speak to it today. Okay, seeing none, I would also open up to any general questions that the community may have for council. Committee of the Whole is an informal session with council, so any topic of your choice you can come forward to speak to council about. Mr. Golden. Just press the green button there.
It was red, so I would like to almost do this in commemory of Nelson, who, if you ever went to his house, when you opened the door, there was this sign that said no smoking, etc. So his was a clean air establishment. Now, I think we need to legislate or clarify what clean air is in Prince Rupert. We have a bylaw that says you can't go into bars and stuff and smoke, but but often the whole downtown will be shredded in smoke from someone burning stuff. And when you call the fire department, which I did, and one of the hotel owners did, they said he has a valid burning permit. Okay, if you look at the burning permit, a lot of the time it says you're not supposed to make a nuisance of your smoke or something like that. The only thing wrong with that is it doesn't define what nuisance is. So I would like for us to say no. Yes, you have a valid burning permit, but that fire has been smoldering like that for 2 or 3 hours. The whole downtown is covered in particulate matter, which is it's most offensive or it's most harmful to young children and people in Nelson's condition, some kind of a breathing impairment or something like that. So I'd like us to not leave it up to the fire department. These guys go into fires all the time, so, oh, it's all right. So you have I would almost say we have to redo the fire permits just from the top, because I had someone next to me cut a tree down a huge alder, and 2 days later burn it. Come on, guys, you got to give it time to prime and everything else. The people that were causing all this smoke were burning all kinds of stuff, which it would be borderline. So yes, let's clarify what the Clean Air Act is, and not just make it into if you buy the building or the burning permit, you're safe. Also, not along the same line, but it's something else, is we have people come up to me on the street and say that they can't find a place to rent at any kind of a reasonable rate. And I walk around town and I see that most of these larger buildings are 3/4 empty to maybe only one occupied. So that becomes I would almost like to, we have a planner here for the community or something like that. I'd almost like to be, once every 6 months or that, sort of inventory these larger places, place across the street. How many houses or how many apartments has it got? So it used to be that these people had to pay some kind of a fee based upon their number of units. Now all they have to do is have a water meter. They pay less, so they don't have to pay anything if they're only taking one tenant of that. So first we need solid information. How many of these are rented out, and almost do a quick survey on more than 4 apartments or something. Do it by phone. Do it once every or twice a year type thing. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else from the public who'd like to speak to council? Okay, entertain a motion to adjourn to reconvene the regular council meeting. Moved by Councillor Cunningham, second by Councillor Niche. All those in favor? Committee of the whole adjourned. Okay, back to our regular meeting. Recommendation that the agenda for the regular council meeting of March 26, 2018 be adopted as presented. Moved by Councillor Ranhawa, second by Councillor Moreau. All those in favor? Motion's carried. Item 3A, recommendation that the minutes of the special council meeting of March 12, 2018 be adopted. Moved by Councillor Cunningham, second by Councillor Niche. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. Item 3B, recommendation that the minutes of the regular council meeting of March 12, 2018 be adopted. Moved by Councillor Cunningham, second by Councillor Niche. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. Okay, first up, petitions and delegations. We have Devlin Fernandez and Nathan Randall, representative of Eco Trust Canada, regarding their update on the North Coast Innovation Lab and NDIT grant application. Welcome.
Okay. Thank you very much for having us. My name is Devlin Fernandez. It's my colleague Nathan Randall with Eco Trust Canada. We recognize that we're on Coast Sand territory, and we also offer our condolences to the family, friends, and colleagues of Councillor Kinney. He will be sorely missed in this community. We are here tonight with two quick items for you, and we will be conscious of your time. Want to give you a quick update on one of our Prince Rupert programs, the North Coast Innovation Lab, and ask for your kind of support or approval in a grant request to the Northern Development Initiative Trust, their Strategic Initiatives Fund. So Eco Trust Canada, a really quick overview. We are a federal charity. We have been around for a little over 20 years, and we have maintained a staffed office in Prince Rupert since 2009. We support economic initiatives that demonstrate triple bottom line outcomes, so basically looking at social elements, ecological elements, and economic elements. And we try and be driven by community interests and needs, as well as bring work from other areas to Prince Rupert. One of the programs we've been running in Vancouver for the past 3 years is called the Local Economic Development Lab, and it is a place-based initiative that's worked in Vancouver's downtown east side to bring community interests, social innovation, and economic development in a very kind of new and innovative way. As we were seeing the energy and vision behind Haze 2.0, Redesign Rupert, and other community initiatives, we thought that we may be able to bring some of our work into Prince Rupert. We got support from some funders, from community members and organizations, and are really pleased to say that we've now spent the past 6 months putting the foundations together for our North Coast Innovation Lab. What was important to us and what we heard from our initial conversations was that we had to adapt any of the work that we've done in other places to a northern and rural context to make it appropriate for Prince Rupert. And Nathan joined our team in November to really support us in doing just that. So what exactly are we talking about? What is the North Coast Innovation Lab? It is a place-based initiatives for people who are invested in the future of Prince Rupert to prioritize and work together on tangible projects and initiatives that build a resilient economy as a tool for community well-being. It's really an experimental and collaborative approach to addressing social, economic, and environmental challenges in a community, and we work with a variety of community groups and organizations to identify, understand, and co-create solutions to the problems. What are we doing? We are providing research, facilitation, design, incubation, and project coordination to activate community-led projects. Part of that is through Nathan moving to Prince Rupert, supporting activities, and also bringing student capacity at a graduate level as well as undergraduate, college, and high school levels to leverage. It is supporting Prince Rupert in developing a shared understanding of persistent problems and opportunities, facilitating and supporting networks, collecting and sharing ideas and knowledge, and building the capacity for social innovation through workshops, partnerships, events, and other means.
So the first part of the North Coast Innovation Lab involved listening to the community, and I was fortunate enough to speak to 45 different community members for the first part of this project to find out what are the key challenges, where are the opportunities, what kind of initiatives would you like to see? So based on all of those findings, as well as the existing initiatives going on in Prince Rupert, including Hayes 2.0, comparing with the redesigned Rupert findings, the following potential areas of focus are where we feel that the North Coast Innovation Lab can really meaningfully contribute. So these are co-working, information and resource sharing, growing the local economy for fish and marine products, and downtown revitalization, placemaking and livability, economic diversification through entrepreneurship, creating low barrier income opportunities through social enterprise, cultural economy building, which could include cultural and ecotourism as well as the arts economy, youth engagement and participation, bridging the socio-economic divide here in Prince Rupert, and enhancing and supporting volunteerism. And these, the highlighted or bolded areas there at the top, the 5 potential areas of focus there, are where we feel we can meaningfully contribute within the first year of the North Coast Innovation Lab. Pardon me. Again, as I mentioned, the initial phase for this project involved interviews and the preliminary design. What could the North Coast Innovation Lab really look like here in Prince Rupert? This was done through over 40 interviews, and the reflections report is going to be shared in April 2018 for anyone who's interested. That's nearly complete. And then we also had a couple workshops and community presentations in March where we shared back our findings with some key community actors as well as with the public. We had that at Northwest Community College. Had some great feedback from that, great participation and interest. So at this stage, partnerships are in development, so we're looking at different kind of partnership opportunities with learning institutions here at the different levels, as Devlin mentioned, as well as different community organizations and programs. We're seeing where we can complement what's already going on, where momentum already is that we feel we can contribute to as well. So for Project Incubation, we will be hiring 2 graduate students for the summer of 2018 to pursue initiatives through the North Coast Innovation Lab, and fundraising is an ongoing process for us. So in order for this to succeed, we have to continue raising funds. Some existing funders are through the Vancouver Foundation, Inuweave, as well as the Kerner Foundation, and we're looking to have the initial projects funded through a program called MyTax, which does fund matching by partnering graduate master's students with they do a matching funding for internships. So yeah.
Thanks, Nathan. And we were just I guess after this presentation was complete, but before tonight, we also heard that we were successful in some BC rural dividend funding, so we're really pleased that that is also bringing capacity to the community. So what our request to City Council is, the Northern Development Initiative Trust had an open call for applications under their Strategic Initiatives Fund. The purpose of that fund was to support community-based projects that focused on long-term economic transformation and sustainability. There was no limit on how many applications could come from particular regions. It was all across the north, but they had to be sort of long-term and community capacity building in nature, we thought that the North Coast Innovation Lab would be a good fit for it. We spoke with some city staff who reviewed our application, and they advised that any application that is coming from Prince Rupert has to have the approval of council. So here we are. There is kind of no new financial commitment from the city, so by approving this application, it doesn't put any implication on your budget line. The project is for an 18-month, $70,000 ask to the Northern Development Initiative Trust to align with our 3-year North Coast Innovation Lab. And the priorities of this funding are to cultivate awareness and a culture of social enterprise and entrepreneurship, to really increase opportunities for businesses and startups to network, share resources, and enhance viability, to support the Developing Young Professionals Network in Prince Rupert, and to expose and engage youth in different business models and opportunities. Again, this would be a kind of submission from the municipality, but the work would be done by EcoTrust Canada. So open for any questions.
Great. Questions from council? Councillor Renhower?
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Thanks for your presentation. I was wondering, like, so far, how many community members or businesses taking benefit of your organization? How many members, community members, or any local businesses taking benefit from your organization? Like, you have any numbers?
I'd say it's hard to quantify benefits, but say over last year we do a lot of work with the commercial fishing industry, and over the last 3 years we've probably had 200 fishermen in to help them with their fishing licenses as they've transitioned to online. We provide monitoring support for the Area A Crab Harvesting Association and the gillnet fishery last year, so there are approximately 30 crab licenses with the skippers and all the deckhands, and then the gillnet fishery is anywhere from sort of 220 licenses a year. With our North Coast Innovation Lab, which is just starting, we've had, Nathan said, sort of 45 interviews. While it's hard to quantify benefits from those interviews so far, I'd say that there are a handful of people who learned about other funding opportunities from the conversations with Nathan that they weren't aware of already, or people in Prince Rupert who didn't know what other organizations were already doing or what resources exist, who have been connected because of participating in those conversations.
Thank you.
Councillor Cunningham?
Thank you for your presentation, Devlin and Nathan. My question is the fish stock.
I think I saw this one coming a little bit. So the first two initiatives that the North Coast Innovation Lab is really looking into involve, and we can even go back to the areas of focus. So based on, again, everything that we heard, and in addition to the findings from existing initiatives, including Redesign Rupert, we spent a lot of time looking into where the parallels were with that initiative. The two areas are enhancing co-working, information, and resource sharing here in Prince Rupert, and growing the local economy for fish and marine products. Now, what initiatives will come out of this kind of remain to be seen. So we're not going into it saying we're looking to create a fish market, or we're not going in saying we're looking to create a co-working space. We're approaching it at a more higher level, because what we've heard is that through sharing resources, by pooling resources and through collaboration, or by revitalizing the fishing industry to some degree at a local level, that's where we feel we can complement what's already going on, as well as creating new economies for Prince Rupert through that. So we're not sure what initiatives will come out of that, but this summer we'll have full-time grad students who are doing research and feasibility into these initiatives.
So Oh, go ahead, Devin.
Sorry. And I'd also sort of add, Councillor Cunningham, so one of the grad students is looking at the fisheries economy piece. Whether it is a fish market or sort of good fish boxes, similar to kind of organic food and vegetable boxes where you have an ability to get local seafood, there's been a strong input at our community presentations, and from interest down at those at the marina, there's been some preliminary work done to look at what would be required and what hoops would have to be jumped through in order to get that.
The only hoops I see is getting permission from the city, which they bloody well better give you, because it enhances tourism as well as brings people from down the line here to buy our product. One complaint I get all the time is we live in a port city and you can't buy fresh seafood from the fishermen. And this is something that I started asking well over a year ago. I know you're just involved in it now, but I would really like to see something up and running by this summer so that when people do come from Smithers, Terrace, or wherever, they can actually walk down to the dock, buy a crab or buy some shrimp or prawns. I don't know if they'll get salmon this year, but you know, it's hard to say. But I know, talking to DFO, all they need is a license on the boat, then they just need a permit to sell from the city and permission to sell on our dock. And so what other hoops I don't know are there, or obstacles, but to me that's oversimplifying it possibly. But I've talked to fishermen that'd be more than willing to tie up there for 4 or 5 hours on a Saturday or a Sunday and sell their product. It gives them, it enhances their profit a little more because they're selling directly to the community rather than to somebody that's trying to squeeze every penny out of the fishermen. We won't mention any names. And while I'm at it, I noticed, you talk about local economy, but I noticed 7 semi-trailer trucks sitting down at Canadian Fish today waiting to load, I'm quite sure, herring to take it down south to be processed. Are you in any way looking into those things? Because that's a lot of jobs driving down the highway.
Sort of 2 comments in response. One, you will be one of the first people that the grad student interviews. We've got a list of folks who've either sort of tried fish markets or want to participate in them, and we really want this to be a due activity, so they will be coming to pick your brain. In terms of on how do we think about our fisheries resources as supporting the community adjacent to where those resources come from, that is definitely something that we at EcoTrust Canada are highly concerned about, and we are doing work on that to think about under the new proposed Fisheries Act, how can we advocate for community concerns and how can we advocate for local jobs.
Thank you.
Other comments? Okay, I just want to say thank you very much. I've been working closely with these 2 bright individuals who are doing lots of great work for us, and I'm looking forward to seeing the process continue on and working collaboratively with you guys. You're doing a great job. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Oh, one last thing. Oh yeah, right. We need to make a motion here. Okay, so let's. The motion is to approve the application for the $70,000 NDIT grant. Okay, moved by Councillor Moreau, second by Councillor Randhawa. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. And congratulations on your funding as well.
Thank you.
Okay, next up we have a report from the Director of Recreation and Community Services regarding the Northern Health Imagine Grant application. Welcome back.
So I'm recommending that Council approve a grant application to Northern Health's Imagine Community Grants program for $5,000 towards new sports equipment. Current supplies available for public drop-in sports programs do not meet demand. The 2018-2019 skating season will require more supplies, and we want to use this grant money to acquire those.
Okay. Okay, so moved by Councillor Cunningham, second by Councillor Niche. Any further discussion? All's in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Okay, next up we have the zoning amendment bylaw number 3420, Not sure if we need to have any further presentation. So the recommendations that following the public hearing. Oh, yeah, sorry, Councillor Niche, my bad. No, I think you're okay. Recommendation that following the public hearing at Council's regular meeting, Council give the third reading to the proposed zoning amendment bylaw number 3420/2018, and that Council give final reading and adopt the proposed zoning amendment bylaw number 3420/2018. Yeah. So moved by Councilor Moreau, seconded by Councilor Randhawa. Discussion. Councilor Moreau.
I just have a question for the city manager related to, it seems like the main concern obviously is compliance enforcement through the housing agreement. Is that going to be the responsibility of our bylaw department?
Certainly that's part of it. If we have complaints, they will likely go to the bylaw enforcement officer. But ultimately, it'll be enforced by way of contract law.
Okay. Other questions and comments? Councillor Cunningham?
Yeah, what parts of this new zoning bylaw amendment are new and what are old? What changes are there? I know I said it in the meetings and that, but I know from past history, and this is why I'm wondering if there's a conflict here, that
Are you talking about the recovery housing or the development process?
Sorry.
Yeah,
Okay,
so, yeah, you're going there. Yeah, no,
Okay.
that's
I'm looking
yeah.
at the wrong.
That's the next
My
item.
apologies.
Next item. I was like, oh no, I think that's the next one. Okay. Do you have anything to say about this proposal?
Yeah, I support it 100%.
Any other comments?
No, just the same like Councillor Mero, right? Who will be looking after if there's any problems? Like city will look after it.
Yeah. Yeah. Go ahead.
Sorry, I'll just add that the reason I asked that question is just the zoning bylaw itself. In terms of a land use perspective, we're talking about special care residential in a residential zone. So I think from a land use perspective, not only are the uses compatible, there's no conflict, but it also supports integration, which is the whole goal of the program in the end. So that's why I'm supportive of this. I think we've got the proper safeguard in place through the housing agreement. I think we've had a very willing proponent who's going to do some great work here. So I'm in support of the motion as it stands.
And I'm really appreciative of all the community members coming today and speaking in favor. Been hearing lots of positive momentum. The contract that we have put out, as well as what Councillor Moreau said, I think creates an innovative solution to this. So myself as well, I'm 100% in support of this. So if there's any other further comments?
We had two letters that were, one was against it, one was just asking questions. And I don't know, I think it would be pertinent if possibly Willie could contact that person and just answer the questions to them, because they live in the neighborhood. They weren't against it, they just had questions that, haven't been answered and they would like them answered. So if Willie wants to get a hold of me later, I'll give him the person's name and he can get a hold of him, because I think it's important to keep the neighborhood informed of what's going on there, because I think everyone supports it. It's just some people have questions like Councillor Moreau there and that, and as long as they're answered, I think everyone's. This is a fantastic idea. We've needed this for so long, and to see it actually coming to fruition, I hope it's the first step in 3-4 other steps, like some people that came up before us and said, because we need other facilities also in this town.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I support Councillor Cunningham again. We have a need for men's shelter. People can go and take services, and they can reconnect with family and community. And I think this facility can be a great asset for our community. And I fully support for this.
Okay. All those in favor? Any opposed? Unanimous resolution. Congratulations. We'll bring Councillor Niche back in. Okay, next up. Yes, you don't have to stick around for the rest of it. You guys can have your night back. Thank you. Next up, we have a report from our city planner. Let's give him a moment. So the report from the city planner, the updated City of Prince Rupert Development Procedure Bylaw.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Okay. So, the reason for this report is the current development procedure bylaw is over 30 years old and can use an update. And as I go through the presentation, I will try to reflect to the question that was posed earlier about what's new and what's old. As quick background, the Local Government Act requires local governments to have development procedure bylaw, which describes the procedures to amend land use regulations or issue permits under Section 14. This includes amendment to official community plan and zoning bylaw, as well as development permits, development variance permits, and temporary use permits. For a brief overview, I will refer to what is in your agenda's page 17 and contains the content. I didn't highlight the items in your package. The highlights are essentially areas where council has some authority to make its individual requirements. And so application requirements essentially are referencing us being able to make an application in a format that we did, which we have changed since the last application, last development procedure bylaw. Owner consent is required by legislation. It's given. You know, that's something that we just repeat, that it has to be there. Applications fees is where we have flexibility, and application fees are going to be referred to the schedules, and in schedules we have application fees, which are the same as we have had before. There was no changes to it. Referrals, there are some referrals that are mandatory, some referrals that are not mandatory. We talk about that. Council considerations is about council having an opportunity to adopt, to decline, or to adopt an application as amended during the process. Notice general, in this situation, we must provide notice, but where we have opportunities to put in some individual flair is on the distance from the subject property. We have just continued our practice, which wasn't defined in the previous bylaw, but now it's defined, and that is 100 meters for zoning applications and 50 meters for permit applications, which are going to be repeated later on in specific areas. Notice of public hearing is quite well defined by the legislation. We just have to follow it. And public hearing, we just witnessed sort of a textbook example as to how public hearings are held. Permits. So these are the general requirements. Then we go to specific areas that are of concern. Official community planning and zoning bylaw amendments. Application is now tied into the schedule. Specific application format. Report to council is something that it's given. Notice is again the reference is to the here. Sign notice is in reference to signage, which is required by every application by legislation. Our opportunity to be individual on this one is to make it to have a size and a format, and in our situation we have a template. The size is 4 feet by 8 feet, which is equivalent to a sheet of plywood, and 99% of the signage in British Columbia are 4 feet by 8 feet. If you go around and you see in different cities, the only difference is what we put on it. Referrals in official community plans. We have a specific referrals requirement to Ministry of Highways and Transportation for any development that's within 800 meters of controlled access highway, which means, you know, where our highway runs, McBride, 2nd Avenue, Parks Avenue, that's essentially the majority of the city. We have a decent relationship with Ministry of Highways, and so we have some things that we are flexible on. Council considerations is a repeat of the previous note. Notice general, again references to the distance in which we are notifying people. Notice a public hearing is a given, and public hearing is a given. And I think I skipped a few things in general requirements. A lapse in the application, that's a new one. In the past, we did not have a specific time limit at which time the applicant has to respond in order for us to know if they are continually being interested. We have now included a limit of 6 months within which the applicant will have to respond to the requirements, or we will close the application. In some of the previous conversation, there was a reference to maybe having a reminder, and so we are going to adopt administrative policy that we are going to remind somewhere halfway between the applicant about the requirement to provide the application. Refunds in the past, we did not specify if refunds are if the funds were refundable or not. I know that I had my stint with those couple of conversations being unclear. Here we are very clear that there are no refunds. So I'm going to go now on to permits. Application again is reference to the schedules. Report to council, essentially at the first stage for development variance permits is a request to go to public notification. In the case of development permits, it is a final reading of the or final decision on the development permits, and it is a little bit different for temporary use permits. Is described in the application. We haven't had any temporary use permits up until now. Notice for permits is 50 meters, whereas in a zoning bylaw is 100 meters, and then referrals are defined by legislation, council considerations as well, public comments as well, and the issuance of permit and format for that as well. And so that basically gives you a scan of what are areas where we have included some of our individual local input, which more or less answers the question that you have posed earlier. I haven't actually gone through the old one and the new one. Old one was very much rudimentary and simple. This one is just a little bit more complex. That concludes my, oh, no, it doesn't. No, I still have a few words to say. City planning staff has consulted with the internal departments, which are usually included in referral process, as well as review the draft bylaw with the council in advance of this meeting. The bylaw was prepared by city staff with no external costs incurred, and the updated development procedure bylaw will provide more clarity and therefore certainty with respect to process application to amend land use regulations or applying for land use development permits. And that concludes my report, Mr. Mayor.
Great. So questions from council. Councilor Morrow?
Thanks, Mr. Mayor, and thanks very much for your presentation. I just have one question on 4.4, which is the site profile. Yeah. I know it's a little bit specific, but for contaminated sites, or maybe I'll start by saying the bylaw itself not being updated since 1987, obviously it's about time we got this modernized. So I'm very glad to see this moving forward. So I'm very supportive of moving an updated bylaw. And I mean, we've experienced a couple of hiccups in the past, so I think this will help us overcome, and just by providing some more clarity kind of around the rules of engagement. So with that said, sorry, so 4.4 on the site profile piece, any contaminated sites regulated under the Ministry of Environment. What you've got here is basically we're going to request a developer to provide a checklist that's supplied by MOE, just so we have that on file. But the question I have is related to 4B, which is basically saying that the city can question the accuracy of the responses provided or proceed with the application process. I'm just wondering what the rationale was for that, because from my perspective, the province doesn't fund us or give us the resources we need to deal with that stuff on the ground. And if they did, I'd be perfectly comfortable trying to do that for them. But without those resources supplied, I feel like we're taking on more than we need to in that regard.
You have more or less answered the question, but I need to chime in because it is something that is very, it's a large irritant in our process, because site profiles, I don't know if you have seen one in your process or as you go from project to project, but it's developed by Ministry of Environment. It asks very specific questions and essentially try to ascertain if there are any hydrocarbons or heavy metals that are present in soils. Great legislation that has gone somewhat awry, in my opinion anyways, in so much that we are now handling, or we have been handling, the IRE of applicants if application is for the reasons of contamination stopped. So because we have that responsibility of intake, and you well placed it by saying that even if we had funds from Ministry of Environment to do this work, we don't have core skills. These are very specific core skills, chemists and analysts and chemical engineers that are evaluating soils. So, in answer to that question, it is something that can be discussed at the council table, but probably more useful at your UBCM conferences to urge the ministry and the government to consider some amendments to this application, because up here we definitely do not have the same strength of real estate as it is down south, where these kind of things are just more or less part and parcel of development envelope. You have to deal with it and you put aside adequate funds and you go. Here with us, some of these contaminated sites, as we see them all around Cow Bay for now, are in a penalty boxes because the cost to decontaminate is too great. In answer to your second question, so this is where we end up, our core skills. If I don't have the confidence that the information is correct, I give it to Ministry of Environment. In fact, my attitude towards it is go down to the government agent, get this printed out, and submit it to Ministry of Environment, and they will tell us if you're clear. It's a little bit of a burden. In other words.
But those are it's
but those are
required
the
though,
rules,
right? Yeah, it's required though, right?
Those are the rules, and we play with the rules right now.
You have a follow-up? Okay. Councillor Cunningham?
Okay, a couple of questions. So, first of all, what's going to happen with existing applications that are on the table or languishing, such as down on the waterfront and things like that?
Yeah, so the way the legislation works is anything that is prior to this new zoning bylaw has to be carried out on the old zoning bylaw. That's the sort of the law. What I will do after this gets adopted, I will go back into our files and remind those who have applications which are overdue with information missing. I will ask them if they can supply the information within 6 months. I think it's probably appropriate.
So you're going to drag them into the new?
No, I'm not going to drag them into the new bylaw. I will suggest that we should close the application and ask them if they're serious to put it in and how much time do they need to have it put it in. And I'll suggest 6 months. If they require more, please let me know how long do you require in order for us to be able to close the file or proceed with it.
Okay, like you suggest 6 months, but you're not saying it is 6 months.
I'll be crafty.
No, okay. One other thing is 6.2. It says at the bottom there, you got A, B, and C, and then any other matters the city planner or designate considers essential or desirable. What other matters would you consider essential or desirable that aren't in there, and why are they not in there? Is this sort of something that might come up after the application?
So these are the essential things that we need in order to move the application. Once we have the application, and quite often during the referral processes, internally we have referral processes that are in advance of the application, that we test engineering department, fire department, building department, what are the questions. And so before the planning staff can make a report to the council, some of the, as you have seen over your 2 terms now, pretty well every application for land development has some kind of a different quirk in it. Something is slightly different than the previous one. So we can be stock. The stock is noted, and if we see any other information, we will ask for it. So that's basically it. Otherwise, we would have checklists that are pages long. Excuse me.
Other questions, Councillor Cunningham? You do have other questions? No? Councillor Morrow, you wanted to follow up with other questions?
Not so much a question. No, maybe I'll make the motion as it's written, just with one small amendment on. I think it's a language piece on 4.5. It says the city planner designate may require the applicant to attend a pre-application meeting. I just don't necessarily think we can compel someone or require a meeting before an application's been submitted. So I think just the spirit of what we were going for there was taking out may require to attend to will make available to the applicant. So the city planner or designate will make available to the applicant a pre-application meeting with staff.
That's fair. So you're moving that with that amendment?
Yes.
Okay, so moved. 3 readings with that amendment.
I'll second.
Seconded by Councillor Cunningham.
I have a question.
Discussion?
When we were in workshop with this, didn't we also come up with a idea that we would have a pre-application meeting with council if necessary? We tossed that around as.
No, we do have that.
That's in there.
We have 4.
Okay.
We have that included pre-application meeting with the council.
Okay, thank you.
4.7 application review with the council.
Other discussion?
I was just wondering if any other councillors had an opinion on the 4.4b section that I was raising earlier, because at least the way that I read it, I don't want us to run the risk of necessarily overstepping and dedicating resources to something that I think should be the Ministry of Environment's responsibility. So I'm strongly supportive of A, where, because if we're, just like you're saying, Mr. Krekke, is just if we're the gatekeeper, we then are going to bear the anger of a developer if they come up across that. But if we make it explicit that we're going to provide that checklist, it's not up to us to verify that at least this is my opinion, I don't think it's up to us to verify that a developer's checklist is accurate, because we're not the ones that legislate fraud in local government. That's my perspective, but sure, no, I'd love to hear your opinion.
No, I agree with that, and there is a provision that we broached with the previous council, maybe 2 councils ago, to execute the clause to exit this agreement, and essentially what that means, all we do is signal to say that if somebody comes with the application for any of the permits or zoning which requires site profile, you don't do anything, you just send them down to the local government office and say, could you please proceed and do this work before you come to us. That didn't go through during those discussions. I think if you would like to maybe pursue this matter, and go back into evaluating the worth of exiting this clause from the Local Government Act, we can go there. For the time being, I think this is, I feel comfortable with this because it gives me complete comfort to say, I don't know anything about chemistry. I don't know anything about hydrocarbons. In fact, sometimes I mispronounce it. So I don't trust you, and I'm going to send this thing to the Ministry of Environment to check.
I'll just say too, I think the default will be to do that, and I think this gives us the flexibility to do it anyways if the planner
Yep.
needs to do that. I think, personally, I think we just leave it the way it is.
That's what I would suggest.
Sorry, I think that gave me the clarification I needed. So what you're saying then is, basically, regardless of the answers, yes or no, whether you think it's right or not, no matter what you're going to do, if there's a site profile submitted to the city, you're going to forward it on to the Ministry of Environment.
And I go even further. During the pre-meetings and pre-application meetings, if I think that there was some activity there in the past which may have contaminated the soils, I strongly direct them to go to Ministry of Environment and clear it first before it comes to the application, because I'll do the same. And then you're going to get stuck for weeks on end.
Yes? Yeah.
Sorry, I just wanted to clarify. That was my misunderstanding. The way that I read that was that we were going to be the ones responsible for verifying.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
So that clarification is helpful. So no matter what, we're going to be sending that site profile to the Ministry of Environment. That's great. It's better safe than sorry always on contaminated sites.
Okay, 4.7,
Oh.
4.7 is an application review with council. The city planner or designate may present. I'd rather see will present so that we see it for sure.
Well, just, we can make that, but I just think like there might be projects that are just not super controversial where we have to have a pre-meeting every time, right? We might be able to just go to first reading. That's just for the pre-review portion.
I think it's sort of pertinent that city planners come to council with any project that it might, whether it's small or large, and then, you know, if we can get advice from them at that meeting. If they don't think we should proceed with it, then that's fine, but at least we're going to be able to review it.
How do other people feel about that?
Would that apply then to like a temporary use permit, or? No. Because we just have to be really. You're talking just major development works over $100,000?
Yeah.
Okay.
I just don't. What I don't want to see is a half, you know, a small to medium project slip through the boards, and when we hear about it after the fact, which is, you know, sometimes comes up, and, you know, we don't know anything about it because it never got to this level.
No, putting in will instead of may doesn't. It really is a bit of wordsmithing, and I'm okay with that.
Are the mover and the seconder okay with a friendly amendment? Okay. Any further discussion? Okay. All those in favor to move the motion as amended? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion's carried. Thank you very much for that.
Thank you.
Glad to see this moving forward. It's great. Okay, finishing off, any reports, questions, or queries from members of council? Councillor Cunningham.
Okay, last council meeting, Councillor Neese brought up a thing about the line painting, how it's disappearing. After he made that comment, I drove around town, and it looks like they've used chalk dust on some of the lines. They're just not there. And they were painted last summer. And yet, years ago, you would walk across the crosswalk, and the paint would be built up. And this here is just gone. And it's not even a year. And I just, I know Councillor Neese asked what type of paint was used in that, but whatever type of paint is used, if we've got to get a contractor to come back every year to repaint those lines, there's something wrong with this picture. You know, we've hired a contractor now to do our line painting, and within 1 year, the lines he painted, you know, that'd be a great idea. Use paint that disappears, and you get to paint it every year. I just think that there's something wrong with whatever went, whether it was painted when it was wet, the wrong paint, or something like that, but it shouldn't disappear that fast.
I believe it's standard procedure that we paint every year and that we lose the lines every year. Isn't that correct? Isn't that how it always works?
Pretty well. We have new pavement, not much, but on 3rd and 2nd, and that it doesn't stick to new pavement as well. But there are lots of other places I've also noticed that it's wore out. We used a lot more gravel this winter, so that also tends to wear it out quicker. And we can get you a complete report on what the contractor did or didn't do, if that's what you want to do.
Yeah, I'd like to know, because if we're going to have to get a contractor to paint those lines every year, because I know it was sort of a rotation that I saw before with the line painting. Like we had an in-house painter, and they weren't constantly painting, and they didn't have the weather to constantly paint. So what I'm looking at is, if it's going to be contracted out, I'd like to see better value for our dollar.
Yeah, the difficulty was when we had it in-house, we never got it done. So that was one of the main reasons why we went to contract. So we can get you a complete report on crosswalk painting if that's what you want.
Okay, further reports from council. Councillor Randhawa?
Yeah, I know you already update on tree cutting online, but still some people, lots of people don't use computers, and they like to know what happened, and if you can update here, please.
Sure, yeah, I can do that. Let me bring my notes up too, just so I get all the right information correct here, because I've been on the phone lots about this. So the Northern View actually posted a really great story, thanks for that, by the way, about the history of the cherry trees. So I'm not going to get too much into the history, so you can read that online, and my post is online as well that you could read it. So basically, the long story short is this. So the decision ultimately came down from Public Services and Procurement Canada, which was formerly known as Public Works Canada. They manage all the federal kind of landscaping for all federal buildings across Canada. There was essentially a general contract that was given out for the area around just general landscaping as part of what they're calling a modernizing project. So just to do some more modern designs with the landscaping, as well as having native trees to the area planted within the areas of they operate. However, the contract just said general landscaping so the folks in Victoria didn't think that it was going to be an issue. And they realized that if it had said tree removal specifically, that they probably would have treated the contract differently. So there must have been obviously some sort of misinterpretation between the contract and the people issuing the contract, because it was given out to contractors. Then they just decided to start removing the cherry trees, which to everyone's shock, and we were all shocked about that. Not one person from this council or the city believed that's an appropriate thing to do. The other thing is that this was not made by DFO, so DFO did not make the decision to do this. Their employees there are just as shocked as everybody else that this happened, particularly given the circumstances surrounding the history and significance of these trees as a gift to us. So after having some long conversations, they have definitely, within the bureaucracy, definitely feel absolutely terrible about this decision. That they did not intentionally mean to cause heartache to the community. They do want to rectify the situation and make amends. They are going to be coming to Rupert, I believe, in the next 2 weeks to meet with some of the folks there at DFO and to discuss what an appropriate solution is. I've done a call out and talked to the family of the people that donated the trees to talk about what a solution could look like, whether it's planting more trees, doing some sort of commemorative plaque, whatever it will look like. And I asked the community for some help on what they think should happen. We're trying to put some agreements in place that, these are, without consulting us, this is what happened. So what ended up happening too is that the contractors came to the city asking for a sidewalk closure permit earlier in the week. The city asked what for, our engineering department. They said it was to cut down the trees. Our engineering department said, no, you can't cut down those trees. They said, yes, we can. They're on our federal property. Then our guys went so far to survey the area to make sure that that is in fact what happened and that it is on their land, and it was. The federal government does not need a tree permit from the city to cut down trees. that was the last of the discussion. No permit for sidewalk closure was granted that day. On Friday, all of a sudden, they started cutting down trees without the grant permitted. The staff went out there, told them to stop what they're doing. They don't even have a permit for the sidewalk closure. They came in, signed the permit midway. The problem was the trees were already halfway cut down. And so basically, this whole thing has just been a massive issue, and I'm still shocked that we even saw this happen, and needlessly, to be honest with you. And I know the federal government within that department definitely want to make things right, and I will not be stopping until they do. And it's a tragic loss for the community, particularly around the history, but ultimately I think we will find a solution to this, and we will get something positive that will emerge from this. And there's definitely some lessons learned, I think, within the bureaucracy around consultation with the community before they do these types of things in the future. And yeah, we, it's just a shame. So anyways, we're going to work with them, and we're going to figure out a solution, and we're working with the family that donated the trees. Talked to the grandson, and they're definitely willing to put some good suggestions forward. And I've been trying to hopefully to make this thing happen sometime this year. So that's what happened with that, and just a shame. Any comments? Yeah.
Well, I mean, first of all, thanks very much for all the work behind the scenes to get all that information out to the public, because, I mean, without having the information, everyone, I mean, now we're all on the same page. We know what's happened, and we can at least move forward. I have a question that I think is probably best directed to the city manager relating to a tree bylaw. I know it's something we've debated back and forth if it's something worth pursuing. I'm wondering in this particular case, if we're to move forward on a tree bylaw or tree cutting or tree maintenance bylaw, would that prevent something like this from happening in the future, or would federal and provincial lands be exempt from our bylaws?
Yeah, federal lands and provincial lands would be ultra-virus to our regulation. So the other difficulty with the tree bylaw is that my experience with them in the past is as soon as you start to talk about enacting them, a number of trees get cut down. So you have to be careful for the unintended consequences having a conversation about a tree bylaw, because people will want to do what they need to do with their own personal trees before the bylaw gets enacted. So that's been my experience a number of times with respect to that issue. So you have to be particularly careful about enacting that kind of public policy on private property.
Okay, any further reports? Councillor Niche.
Being that this person didn't have a permit for sidewalk closure, is there a way that we can fine them for not having a permit? And did they have a business license to do business in Prince Rupert? Take that one from Barry.
We can check on both those things.
Yes.
I know in the end they got a permit because they came in while the trees were already, I think, half cut down to get a permit. So we can't not issue a permit, but and it was a permit to park for more than 2 hours. So I guess theoretically we could give them a parking fine.
How about a fine for no business license if they don't have one?
I will check into that, get back to you.
Okay, just one other quick thing. The Northern View did a very good article on Councillor Nelson Kinney, and if anyone wants to read that, go to their website and take a look at it, because it was excellent. I looked at it, and trust me, it took me a while to get over reading it, but it was a very good article about him. They did a good job, and I'd like to point that out.
Thank you.
Yeah, maybe I could say a few words for the staff here. Nelson was a tremendous support for us. He was an easy guy to get along with, and cared deeply about us and the community. And we're all sad to see him passing. On a personal note, Nelson was the holder of many of my family secrets, because he actually cut my mother's hair, and as he liked to say, he really knew all the family secrets in this community as a result of many years of being a hairdresser, what they called them in those days. Anyway, yeah, we're all saddened, and we will definitely miss him.
Thank you. And on that, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn. Moved by Councilor Cunningham, second by Councilor Niche. All those in favor? Meeting's adjourned.